feeling right now. So your panelists just did a quick change from the previous session. We just presented in the larger room for Alaska tribes. And so it took us a little bit to get started. I just would like to start by introducing myself. I'm Christy Fry. I'm a tribal coordinator in the Region 10 Tribal Trust and Assistance Branch. I primarily work with tribes in the Yukon region of Alaska. However, when it comes to land work, I have worked extensively in Washington and Oregon on land issues related to sustainable materials management. I did a 18-month detail with the sustainable materials management team. And so that gave me a lot of exposure to these programs. And so I'm really excited to be here moderating this session. You're going to hear from a number of panelists, and we're going to try to tighten up our introductions for this particular panel so that we can get a little bit deeper into discussion today. It should help that we've dropped a couple of panelists. The Alaska session included a number of extra technical assistance providers and programs. So today we're here to talk about land programs for tribes with reservations. And we're going to start by hearing from our EPA representative for the Tribal Solid Waste Program, Kayla Kraus.
Okay. Hey there, you guys. Yeah, as Christy said, my name is Kayla Kraus. I lead Region 10's Tribal Solid and Hazardous Waste Program. And I like to start, because we're talking about kind of the spectrum and continuum of land protection programs. So what is included in solid and hazardous waste? Well, to say it simply, that's your garbage programs, landfills, recycling, transfer stations, composting, and yeah, any household hazardous waste collections that you might be doing, or from locations on the reservation. If you guys have a fleet, right? Vehicles, having maintenance shop, if you've got used oil, antifreeze stuff from there that you gotta dispose of. So that's kind of the breadth of our program. And I'll just mention a couple of funding and technical assistance opportunities that you can tap into or be thinking about for when they do come up again. The big one that I have just loved getting to speak about because it is so exciting in terms of the investment for tribes in their waste programs is called the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling Grants. We call that SWIFR, like the little mops. And so that program has 3 different branches to it. There's one for states, so all 4 Region 10 states are participating in that. It has one for local non-tribal governments, and then it also has a separate set aside for tribes and intertribal consortia. So the big SWIFR program, including all 3 of those, was authorized for $275 million between FY22 and FY26. And so far, we've put out 1 round of funding through that program. And super, super exciting nationally within the tribal part of that program, there were 59 tribes and consortia that were selected for funding. We had 23 of those here in Region 10 for $26 million worth, which is huge, huge investment, totally amazing way to transform those programs. These grants fund things like infrastructure. They do actually fund construction, which is very rare for EPA programs. You guys have all seen in your grant budgets, no construction, right? So these can actually fund that. If you are wanting to build a recycling center, it can pay for big ticket things like trucks, right, for picking up waste, doing your own collection program on the reservation, building out more of like a transfer station or a location for the community to bring materials that can then go on to other sites for proper recycling and handling, right? And so, yeah, of that 26 million in Region 10, 23 grants The big numbers were in Alaska because just the quantity of tribes up there. But for tribes in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, we had 7 grantees for $6 million worth. So those are pretty exciting. And I know a handful of those tribes are here today. I know there's a representative from Nez Perce tribe, Snoqualmie tribe, T-Swan, who you'll be hearing about today, all part of that Swiffer group. And those are just the folks that I've seen. So if you are a Swiffer grantee and I haven't gotten to meet you yet, come say hi to me afterwards. So that's the big one. We don't know when EPA is going to announce the next round of funding, but like I said, that was a $275 million pot that we need to get that money out kind of by FY26. Well, it's hard to believe we're already kind of midway through FY24 right now. So my biggest tip on that is the handout I'll pass out has a stay connected link. So you can get updates for when this comes out directly. I have also been doing everything I can to make sure that when we have info on this, it goes out to all the tribes in the region and that you are going to hear about it. But my tip there is start thinking about what projects you have, what equipment needs, things that are going to help your programs, and places where maybe you wanted to build, but you're limited by the GAP program and your funds there and what you can expand into. So this is that next step if you've been looking to take it and haven't been able to. So that's the really big one. The other thing that I have on the list that I'll share around the tables, and that's online, is EPA does maintain a tribal solid waste funding directory. So you can actually go on there and check for other opportunities, like ones that are out right now or going to, you can sort by eligible entities. So put in tribes, look for, if you're really focused on composting, you can check that box and it'll spit out some opportunities from our other partner agencies that you might want to look at. And then, the last thing I'll say is, just our team also provides technical assistance if you are thinking about updating an integrated waste management plan for your tribe, for the reservation, which would, go into your approach. What are you doing for your recycling? How do you want to build that out? We can help you kind of think through those steps. And one of the members on our team, his name is Rick McMonigal. He is based in Oregon, and he is our tribal technical assistance liaison. He's also a circuit rider. So if you are interested in having someone from our team come out and meet with your facilities or utilities, however your recycling programs are orged, whether it's in your environmental program or somewhere else, let us know. He can come out and meet with you and talk further about how you want to build your programs. So that's a great resource. We want to see that be something that you guys can utilize if you want to have someone on site. But otherwise, give me a call, give Rick a call. We're always happy to chat with you about what you want to do with your program. So that's all I've got. And I don't know who's next, so I'll step aside. Thanks, Leila.
So up next, we're going to have Cindy Spirey, who's from the organization T-Swan, the Tribal Solid Waste Advisory Network. And I will just kind of pull a quick thread on what we heard from Kayla. Something that we find with tribes, with reservations, is your environmental program doesn't do it all. You have utilities programs, you have other sort of programs that your tribe manages. And so even if the work around solid waste doesn't fit within your environmental program, your utilities folks can reach out to us for technical assistance, can reach out to these technical assistance providers to think through process changes and things that might be good for the community. So thinking about that, it doesn't have to be housed under your environmental program or under your PPG or your GAP program. So I just wanted to kind of pull that thread for this particular audience. And we're going to hear from Cindy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Spirey, Environmental and Natural Resources Department Director for the Snoqualmie Tribe and T-SWAN Board Member, Tribal Solid Waste Advisory Network. And as we were talking about earlier in the other room, T-SWAN is a resource for tribes in Region 10. We have lots of members in the Northwest, which includes Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and then also Alaska. T-SWAN addresses environmental and natural resources, also public works challenges within tribal communities with a focus on solid waste management, safety, recycling. T-SWAN provides comprehensive peer support, technical assistance, and practical guidance to member tribes. Collaboration is our strength. By coming together tri-annually, we build a lot of connections. We're able to hear about each other's programs, which is really beneficial in building our own programs. I've been a member of T-SWAN for about 15 years. And I've been on the board for the past several years, and I was able to build our program within the Snoqualmie Tribe through working with T-SWAN, getting ideas about what other tribes are doing, learning about resources. T-SWAN meets triannually. These are free meetings. Anyone can attend. We also have funding to support travel. So that's through IGAP, and we have a couple of other EPA grants now. So they're not only free meetings, but we have support for 1 to 2 members of your tribe if you want to become a T-SWAN member. So some of the things that we do in our meetings are we have speakers, we have guest speakers to come, and we can learn about their programs to support tribes. We also have a training with every meeting. That those trainings are determined by our tribes. The tribes, we do a survey pretty much every year and find out what tribes are dealing with and what types of trainings would be beneficial to them. We have trainings like 40-hour HAZWOPER. We also have an 8-hour refresher, HAZWOPER refresher regularly. We have trainings for writing a recycling plan, asbestos awareness training, safety, transfer station training, bloodborne pathogens, pollution prevention, and zero waste. Lots of different trainings. One training that will be coming up is updating or writing an integrated solid waste management plan. There's been a lot of requests for that. As I mentioned earlier, we have support for tribes. We get funding through IGAP. We now have a SWIFR grant. We have hazardous waste management grant. And our SWIFR grant is an exciting new project. It's the biggest project that T-SWAN's ever undertaken. This is a project working with 4 member tribes for a pilot program to start small recycling programs for them. And this is intended to reduce or increase recycling by 25%. We also work with Next Cycle, who will be another organization that will support this project as well. And I have 1 flyer left, but I will print out some more flyers. If anybody wants information about T-SWAN, come see me and I will get it for you. Thank you.
And I'll just mention our one-pagers are also available on the Whova app for this session information. So if you have questions or want follow-up information, those are all posted there. And I'll also put a plug in tomorrow morning. We're going to have a sort of Ask an Expert speed dating session over in the big room, and where all of our in-person presenters are going to be available for you to ask some really specific questions if you have follow-up questions or you want some more information. And I will just put a plug for T-SWAN in and say that they have done some amazing work that is very inclusive of multiple programs within the tribe, and has included things like working with the casino on their food waste issues, working with the solid waste programs to address illegal dumping sites and cleanup of, there were some folks who were curious about what to do with drug sites and how to clean up the meth labs and things like that. So there's been some really innovative work that's been done, and they are very open in sharing their information and their success stories on their website. So tswan.org is the website. So if you hear something today that strikes your interest, that's one way to get in touch with them. Up next, I'm going to pivot to pollution prevention, the P2 program. Our EPA person for P2 moved on to a different job, and so the position at EPA has been vacant for a while. Next week, the new hire will be fully announced, but couldn't make that announcement here yet. So on behalf of P2, we have one of our amazing technical assistance providers from PPRC, Ed Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Ed Gonzalez. I'm the director of the Pacific Northwest Pollution Prevention Resource Center. So we're a nonprofit organization. We're based out of Seattle, Washington. We were established in 1991 to provide direct technical assistance to small businesses, industry, tribal territories, basically everybody under the sun, right, on pollution prevention. But for those of you who are not aware of what pollution prevention is, it's defined as the following. It's the practice of reducing, eliminating, or preventing pollution at its source before treatment, recycling, or disposal. Right. And so in the pyramid or the hierarchy of environmental services that EPA has created in the last 20, 30 years, pollution prevention ranks at the top. Right. So we're trying to prevent the generation of waste or pollution so that we don't have to deal with it later on in future years. So I wanted to share with you 3 to 4 programs that we have where we provide direct technical assistance to tribes. The first one is going to be site assessments. So we can go to your tribal to your tribe, right, and do a site assessment. So what we would do is analyze all the operations within your tribal government. Could be restaurants, it could be fleet maintenance, it could be anything, casino operations. And we would do an analysis of where your waste streams are at, and we would provide a list of recommendations as to where you can improve. All right. The other one would be P2 zero waste training, as Cindy Spirey had mentioned. And basically what we did is we integrated pollution prevention training with zero waste training. So pollution prevention is really concerned with hazardous waste reduction. Zero waste is concerned with solid waste. So a lot of the principles are the same. So we try to integrate them because it just makes sense to integrate them. Last year, and the year before, we helped 5 tribes in the state of Washington to develop at least a portion or all of its integrated waste management plan. And we are still working with some of them to see if there's been any progress with some of the steps that we recommended. And there has been. But these type of projects require a lot of time. It's over time before you start seeing some results. We also have a P2 conference, a pollution prevention conference that we host every year. And this is for Region 10. We recently submitted a proposal where we're combining Regions 8, 9, and 10. So that's 14 states. And it's going to, if it's successful, we're going to have the first conference in Seattle, and then the second conference in San Diego. And at this conference, we're going to have a lot of pollution prevention, zero waste, and all different sectors, examples of tribes and other communities and how they've been successfully implementing, their efforts to reduce pollution. The fourth one is spray efficiency training. I know that's air, but it's also, land, because in spray applications like in auto body shops, auto repair shops, a lot of hazardous waste is generated. And if you don't take care of that hazardous waste, you don't manage it well, and it rains, well, that's going to end up in the land. And so we try to work with these shops to implement safer alternatives to some of the solvents that they use, so that the hazardous waste is never created in the first place. Okay, and with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over back to Christy.
Thanks, Ed. And I will just say EPA does have a grant program under P2. Those are usually available every other year. And if you combine your P2 grant into a PPG, there's an automatic match waiver. P2 programs have a huge match. It's a 50% match. And that is a massive barrier for tribes, right? So if you're interested in doing that work, if you combine that into a performance partnership grant, you can have that entire match waived, which is awesome. So we started with tribal solid waste. We kind of moved into this pollution prevention realm, and now we're going to kind of move into brownfields and the cleanup side. And so I'm going to have my colleague Margaret come up.
Hi, everyone. It's such a nice room. I've actually talked to about half the people in here about brownfields already. So that's a really great feeling. So I'm the land revitalization coordinator for Region 10. I've been working sometimes part-time, now full-time in brownfields with EPA for the last 15 years. And for the last 3 years, it's been super exciting. And the next 2 years are super exciting because we have $1.5 billion over 5 years from the bipartisan infrastructure law. So lots of extra funding flowing through, even after the next 2 years are over and we don't have the BIL funding anymore, we will still have regular appropriations, which we've always had. So it's not like the brownfield program is going away. It's just on speed right now because we have a lot of extra funding coming through. So we've got, I'm kind of dividing the funding up in 3 different types. We've got grant funding that's competitive, grant funding that's non-competitive, and then we have other funding for direct assistance. So first I'll talk about our non-competitive grants. And I see one of the original starters of my favorite non-competitive tribal response program grant, Margaret Corvey, back there. So she's with the Confederated Tribes of Coos Lower Umpqua and Siuslaw Indians, and they have had a tribal response program grant longer than I've been in Oregon. I've been here for 7.5 years, and I think they've had their program going for about 12 years. And I believe it started because of this site that is gorgeous, but the Navy and other military folks had polluted the site. It's called Coos Head, and the tribe used the tribal response program to oversee the military cleaning up the site and work with DEQ to get it fully, considered cleaned up. Although now it's opening up again because of PFAS issues, but they did a great job with that. They also have used the tribal response program to do a lot of other wonderful assessment and cleanup work of brownfield sites, and also using it to develop and accredit their own environmental lab, which is wonderful. So I can't say enough great things about CLUSI. And then I also have to add that they were returned 15,000 acres from the Western Oregon Tribal Fairness Act a couple of years ago. And they were able to get 1.2 million from infrastructure law funds added to their TRP to assess those properties. So really great work that they're doing there. So that's our non-competitive program. Anybody can apply for a tribal response program, but you have to be running a program. It's mainly for bringing on staff people, over 50% of the funds, which aren't very much. It usually starts around $80,000, $90,000 a year, but it's to give tribes funding to run a brownfield program. but you can get bump ups with the infrastructure law and things like that, like what Clusie got. We also have our competitive grant program. Those come out every year. So the next round of competitive grants will be, it'll come out probably early September and they'll be due in November. And we've got a grantee I work with here, the Grand Ronde. They got a competitive grant for $800,000, a multi-purpose grant to do assessment and cleanup of the former Blue Heron paper mill. And if you saw Kathleen George's presentation yesterday, she didn't have the ugly picture of the Blue Heron paper mill. She had the beautiful picture of Tumwata Village. So Grand Ronde is working to restore that site to its former glory. Of course, 800,000 is not nearly enough to do that. So our funding is just seed money. The tribe's going to be spending a lot more funding, but you could potentially come in for additional EPA funding if you'd like. But they've been wonderful to work with. And Coquel has gotten a competitive grant. So Let's just got one recently. So it's not an uncommon thing to get these competitive grants. And my next presenter will talk to you about potentially offering help for applying for these grants. So we also have other funding that we have land revitalization program funding, and we have the targeted brownfield assessment program. So the land revitalization funding is planning funds where we have a contractor and we bring the contractor in to work with the tribe or, any other entity to kind of plan what to do with this brownfield sites. So one of the really exciting ones I'm working with is this group called Veterans Ecological Trades Collective. They're a 501c3, and they were donated 120 acres of contaminated land. Didn't know they probably should do some due diligence before taking that on. But the land is right along I-5, not far from the Chehalis tribe. And it's a wildlife migration corridor between the Olympic Mountains and the Cascade Mountains. So the Chehalis tribe is going to take this land and use brownfield funding to do habitat restoration and help ramp up this corridor. But EPA used the land revitalization assistance to kind of come up with a plan for accomplishing this. And so we are going to find funding to get all of the assessment work done before Chehalis takes on this behemoth of a property, but they are, and brownfield funding can be used for habitat restoration. So it doesn't have to be redevelopment into something that humans use. It can be redevelopment into something that wildlife is going to use as well. And we're also doing another land revitalization project with Tlingit and Haida in Alaska. And I know this isn't the Alaska group, but it's really cool. I just wanted to share it. So we are going to be designing the recycling center for Tlingit and Haida on a brownfield site. It's called the Thane site in Juneau. And it's going to be like the first one where we're directly working with the tribal solid waste folks, because Tlingit and Haida got a Swiffer grant to do the collection of the recyclables. Then we're going to design the plant, and then maybe they'll come in for another Swiffer grant to build the plant. We'll see. But it's neat when we can collaborate with other EPA programs for that. So that is our land revitalization program. We do planning activities around brownfield sites. And we also have the TBA program. So if you don't want to take on a grant or build a brownfield program, EPA can come in and we can do the phase 1 or phase 2 assessment for you with the TBA program. So that's always an option too. But most importantly, what I want you to take away is talk to us, because we will kind of help you figure out which program is the best for what you want to accomplish with your brownfield needs. And I will turn it over to the next presenter now.
So we're going to bring up Joy Britt. And I will just say part of the format of this session was really to highlight the interconnectedness of this work. You have heard overlap between all of our presenters and the programs that they're representing. And if you take something away from the session, I want you to take away that these are not, standalone programs. They all have this interconnectedness. And if you have questions about how they might fit together, this is a good place to talk about it, to workshop it, to think it through. So I'm going to have Joy kind of talk.
Thanks, Christy. Hello, everyone. My name's Joy Britt. I work for the Center for Creative Land Recycling. That's a mouthful, so we usually just call it CClear. So if you hear CClear, that's us. Pretty much what we do is all the programs that Margaret talked about, we offer free technical assistance to you for any of those. I do have a 3-page printout document that lists services that we can provide for free. If you're wondering like, and I was just going to read a few of these. I did prepare a spiel, but we went over on the last one. So I'm just gonna shorten that and really make sure that we have some time to chat. But yeah, some of the things that we do to help you is we can do some Brownfields 101 trainings. We really love to help with event coordination. Coming up in Washington, we're working with Washington Ecology on putting together a Washington workshop, Brownfields workshop, and this can be one or multiple workshops depending on the communities in Washington that are interested in being a host community. So that would mean we would go to your community, we'll talk about brownfields, work with the communities to see if we need a 101, if we need to talk more about a specific site. And we've done this throughout the Region 9 and Region 10 areas and states that we work in. So I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but CClear is the technical assistance provider for brownfields, and we're funded by the EPA to offer those technical assistance services through Regions 9 and 10. But if you are from Washington and you're interested in participating in these workshops, please see me after. We have a survey that we're really trying to figure out where and when these could happen. And really, really would love to see more tribal communities participate in these brownfield workshops. So if you're not from Washington and you're interested in hosting a workshop in your state or your community, we can help with that as well. So I think that I'm just going to keep it short this time and just really summarize that we're really here to help you repurpose your community's abandoned, vacant, or underutilized properties. And like Margaret mentioned, that can be anywhere from building a new community hall or keeping that space green and bringing it back to original use. That's really very important. I'm from Alaska, and that's really important to our communities in Alaska. So if you're interested in all the things, all the programs EPA has to offer, we can help with them. And I have a ton of fun handouts for you. Thank you.
Right, last but not least, EPA has been really growing our environmental justice program over the last couple of years, and there has been a lot of sort of just big grant programs that have come out of that EJ program and funding resources. And sometimes we run into snags when we are trying to utilize our GAP dollars for certain projects. Sometimes we run into snags when we're trying to use brownfields for our projects. Sometimes the site just doesn't meet the requirements for that kind of work. And sometimes it's really important land or property that is impacted by things like buildings that have partially collapsed or partially burned. And your tribe might be looking for funding for how to remediate that site. And, GAP doesn't allow for construction or demolition. We did hear that, Swiffer infrastructure grants can build. We did hear a little bit about brownfields revitalization and that being an opportunity. But really to bridge those gaps on those properties that don't meet those other definitions or maybe are creating issues for your community, the EJ program, Community Change Grants, might be an opportunity. So I'm going to allow Scott to talk about that.
Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Schleif. I am part of Region 10's Environmental Justice program. For those of you who've been tracking the EJ program over the last couple of years, you will notice that there's been a significant increase in the amount of funding and the amount of attention that environmental justice has been given within EPA and the broader federal family. To kind of highlight that, our Region 10 environmental justice program went from 1 to 2 people 2 years ago, and now we're at 15 full-time folks and still growing. Our grants went from just a couple $1 million a year to now we have $2 billion of funds in just this community change grant program alone. So we've seen a really, really significant investment in environmental justice through the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law and from the Biden and Harris administration. So it's been pretty amazing to see. These community change grants are truly that. They are meant to go in and change a community. There's 2 different tracks on these. The first tract, which is the major tract, it's responsible for 1.96 billion of that 2 billion, is meant to fund projects from 10 to $20 million. So if you have a canned project that you want to enact and you just haven't found the funding source for it, this may be your opportunity to do that. The tie-in to kind of the contaminated lands and brownfields is that we actually have ability to do brownfields redevelopment with these things. So if you have brownfields that have now been cleared and you have certification that they're cleared, we can provide funds to redevelop those. And that could be from anything from your waste and your hazardous waste, your recycling and composting facilities. We can build those with this, which has never been done before. We can demolish things, which has never been done before. We can put in parks and infrastructure, green water infrastructure, bike paths. There's literally a million different things that you could do. It just really depends on how imaginative you are and how well you can get it to fit within some of the criteria. So it has to meet some of our climate strategies and climate action goals and also pollution reduction goals. I can go over those with you in detail if you have specific questions about it. But if you Google our community change grants and look at the notice of funding opportunity, I urge you to look at appendixes C and D. You'll see a lot of different examples of projects that may help inspire you and get you to think about what you want to do within your community and how you may be able to leverage those dollars to really affect that change. There is a second track that I had mentioned. It's about $40 million. That is for kind of capacity development, community development. There are opportunities to do workforce development, which is, I know, a big thing that a lot of folks are looking for. So there is really kind of endless opportunities with these grants. They fit hand in hand. You know, I mentioned in the Alaska session that we actually can do a lot of the things that some of the ANCSA folks can't. We actually have funding right now to actually do ANCSA land contamination assessment and start that initial cleanup, which is pretty groundbreaking as well. So it's a pretty game-changing sort of situation, and these grants are pretty amazing. Yeah, I welcome any questions for them. Again, my name is Scott Schleif. We have a whole team of folks specific to each state, and we are always available to you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Right, we're at the fun part. So we really wanted this session, and I'm gonna take this off of this so I can move around. So we really wanted this session to be interactive. And we really wanted to give you the opportunity to talk amongst yourselves, things you've heard today that might have piqued your interest, or you know, where you are with this work. If you have sites that you maybe want to reach out to EPA or see clear about, if you have community resources that, you know, the community change grant sounds interesting for, if there's a solid waste challenge in your community and maybe the Swiffer program is the right thing. If you have industry within your tribe and pollution prevention is something that you're interested in, we wanted to take a minute and we're gonna do a little bit of a breakout. The folks online, you're gonna be put into a breakout session for about 5 minutes. The folks in the room, we're gonna encourage you to kind of mix up, intermingle, and have a discussion about where are you in this land work? Where are you, as a community, what are you interested in thinking about? And so we're just going to give you about 5 minutes of just table discussion to introduce yourselves amongst your table mates and to talk about where are we in this work and what is interesting to us that we've heard this morning. And then we'll come back and we'll do some Q&A and discussion time. Sound good? All right. Yeah, and our presenters have some materials that they will be sharing around too. So, but please. Looks like we're getting close to that time window. And I don't want to interrupt these amazing, rich conversations that are happening, but I do want to give folks an opportunity to maybe do some Q&A if that's happened at all. So I am excited for these conversations that are happening. That is exactly what we wanted to see with this session. All right, folks in the room, we're going to ask you to pause your conversations for a few minutes here. I know it's hard once we get on a roll, but we're going to come back together for our last few minutes of this session so that we can do some Q&A. I would like to start by offering an opportunity for our folks online to ask questions. Hey, folks in the room, I know it's hard to stop our conversations, but hey, please pause conversations for a minute. I'm going to start pulling out if you can hear me, put your hand on your head, stuff that I use for coaching. I know it's so hard to stop conversations, but I really do want to give our folks who are virtually part of this an opportunity to ask questions for our presenters in the room. And I also want to give us an opportunity to wrap up and to do a little bit of Q&A. Our session is going to go all the way to 12:30. We're not going to wrap at 12:25 because the main room got started a little late. So for our folks who are online, do any of you have questions for the panelists that you heard from? Okay. What were we talking about online? Was there anything that came out of your discussion that you think might be good to share with the rest of the group? Okay. I wanted to make sure we had the opportunity. For those of you in the room, I would like to hear from a couple of you thoughts, discussions. There was a lot of conversation happening. What were your sort of takeaways from this morning? Is there work that's now something that you're planning to pursue as a result of what you've heard? Thanks for rescuing me, Russ.
Thank you. I asked Joy some questions and appreciated the answers. It was, we don't have any brownfield, but we do have property we wanted to purchase, but we don't know if we know it's contaminated, but don't know what level. So she answered my question and I appreciated that. But we do have some houses that my tribe has shut down due to drug use in the house. Is there any funding to clean those houses up, individual houses?
Yeah, Margaret here.
Well, drug contaminated houses are eligible for brownfield assessment and cleanup funding. So any of the ways we talked about getting brownfield funding could potentially apply to that. Which tribe are you with? So, Joy can help you get in touch with folks from the region, or I can, however you feel more comfortable, but, you don't have a tribal response program right now because you said you didn't have brownfields, but actually what you're describing is a brownfield. So you do have brownfields. But yes, that is eligible for brownfield funding to do both the assessment and cleanup of those housings. It depends. So if you want to apply for your own brownfield funding through a tribal response program, that's like a year-long process. We have the EPA TBA program where we come out and we do the assessment for you, and that would take about 6 months. And then, which state are you in? Okay, so Washington, Washington Department of Ecology could potentially come in and do the assessment and cleanup for you as well. So do you have a card you can give me? And I'll put you in touch with. Okay, well, I will get all your information and Joy, you have it?
Pamphlet that's online about meth fields is what they call
Mhm.
it. So definitely what you're addressing, but I wanted to show it to you and then, yeah, we could get each other's information.
Yeah, we can set up a meeting after this to talk more about that and which type of funding would be the best fit for what your needs and capacity are. You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Russ. Hearing that, does anybody have another question that came to mind about? Is anybody really excited to pursue some of these opportunities that they maybe didn't think about before? I get excited when we talk about how holistically all of our lands programs kind of fit together. I think a lot of times we are siloed as an agency. And so you maybe have a relationship with your GAP project officer, but you may not have had a relationship with Kayla Kraus. You may not have had sort of the interface with our pollution prevention program or our brownfields programs. And it's just such rich and exciting work. And there's so many things that can happen. And they're not all on the environmental program to manage and to deal with. So I get really excited about talking trash and land work. So if you have questions, if you have follow-up, tomorrow morning, we're going to have a session where all of our panelists will be available to share more information and you can ask more questions. We encourage you to take materials that they have offered up. And if you didn't get your hands on a hard copy document, the information's all loaded on the Huba platform. And we will make sure that that we share everything that we have. And we just hope that this has made some new connections for you. We hope that you are coming away with a new sense of community around this work. And we hope that, that you're energized and excited from these connections. So we are moving into the lunch hour. Yay. That. So we're gonna move next door for lunch. And yeah, I'm excited for this afternoon's sessions. We're gonna have a session focused on ocean. We're gonna have a session focused on I don't even know. Let's see. We have an air and an ocean session happening this afternoon. So continuing our breakouts and and then we're going to have some more workbook time to kind of bring things together. And so yeah, I'm just looking forward to being with you in this space. And if you have questions, you can hit up all your panelists while they're here. And please feel free to reach out to your tribal coordinators and all of our panelists. So I'm going to do one round of applause for our panelists today, and thank you.